Let's take a deeper dive into the Glyphs app. Let's go into Glyphs, and again, it might seem like nothing is happening, but you will notice that on the top left, it will now have this active menu bar for Glyphs. So let's go into File, New, and you can see that Glyphs will open up a new font file for us with some pre-filled glyphs in there. And you can see that it is now a little bit grayed out because these are just placeholder images for you to see which letter should be in that place. And again, if you go into categories, you can see that you can see what this font file holds. For example, if I click on punctuation right here, you can see that the period, comma, and hyphen are the punctuations that are in this font file. So it is categorized in there. And then the same thing for the numbers, right? So you can see that if I go into numbers, we have some placeholders for 0 through 9 that are in here. And let's go back into all for now, just so we see everything that is in this file. And let's go through what these buttons mean on the top left corner. So the first one, if you click on it, is the font information window. And if you want to know the shortcuts, you can hover over these and it will show you which keyboard commands are the shortcuts here. So you can see that Command I is a show font info. So you can click on this or you can press Command I on your keyboard to bring this up. And we will go over this font info menu a little bit more in detail later, but for now, let's try to rename our font file. So instead of new font, which is the default placeholder, let's do Demo Week 4. And you should probably name your typeface in a more interesting way. Try to name your typeface as early as you can, just so you don't get messed up in all these different font files that says test number 2, test number 3. Have a good naming convention going on. Anyway, so I will name this and then you can just click out of it and it will automatically update. There's no need to save right now. So let's click out of it and you will see that Glyphs has just automatically updated our very top name to show that it is now named Demo Week 4. And let's save this. So let's go to File, Save, and then you can see that that there is a demo file that I've saved before. Let's save this as class file week 4. And then once you save, you can see that now it is a proper Glyphs app file. So you can see the little icon pop up right there. And then it says, this is the file named class file week 4, and this is the font file demo week 4. And I know that's a little bit confusing, but hopefully as you name it, it'll become a little bit more clear. And there are all these different menu items that you are seeing right here. So the top we'll go over in just a second. This is grayed out because you're in the overview window. And on the right side, you can see that there are some dimensions where you can take notes and transformations, which we'll use later. Let's go back to the top left corner. So you can see that the next on our little corner is this little grid view. So if you click on it, it'll feel like nothing has happened, but that's because you're already in that view. This is 2 different modes of viewing your font file right now, and you can see that this grid view shows you a very big preview of all the glyphs that you have. And let's go into the second one, which is the list view. So if you go into the list view, you can see that a lot of things have changed. You can see that very much like how you might be familiar with navigating in the macOS Finder window, it is now a listed format where you can see a lot more information about this glyph at the expense of having the preview window smaller and on the top. So this is very useful when you want to see some other information that is not very easily accessible in this grid view. So I've just gone back into the grid view, and let's briefly talk about how to get into the editing window. To get into the editing window, you can easily just double click on any letter and it will take you there. For example, let's just double click on this capital letter A, and you can see that this new tab opens up. You'll see that the font preview overview over here is still in this tab, and you can click back into it. But now you have this new tab that holds the editing window. Here you can see the A right here. And you can see that in an active letter, this box pops up that has the metric. So this is the baseline, that's the X height, that's the cap height, and so forth. So if you see this, you can go into the toolbar and see that there are a lot of different icons that are now active, whereas they were grayed out before. And we'll use these in the later chapters, but just to show you that you can put in multiple letters in the editing window, click on T right here. It is the text tool, and then you'll see that your cursor changes, if you zoom in, into this I shape, as opposed to the regular cursor shape that it was before. And you might be familiar with this if you've used Word editing documents before. So here we can see that we can click on different portions like before and after a letter. Now we can start typing in our keyboard different letters. So I might say, let's say ACE here. And so I've typed in all these letters, and now if you double click into any of these, I'll do this right now with a C, double click, you can see that the editing box comes back up, highlighting this letter and letting me know that this is the main letter that I am focusing on drawing right now. And again, if you want to go back into the mode of typing more letters, you can click on text tool or T on your keyboard. And at this point, you might be wondering, how do I zoom in or zoom out? This is accessible by going into the view, and you can zoom in or zoom out. Right, so if I click and zoom in or zoom out, you can see that it's zooming in and out. But this might get a little bit tedious if you have to click in there all the time. So I do recommend that you memorize that the zoom in function is Command plus, and zoom out is Command minus on your keyboard. And Command 0 is very useful too. So I'm going to show you Command plus, that right now, and pressing Command minus. And then if I do Command 0, which is the number 0 on your keyboard, you can see that it highlights and focuses on the active layer right now. So those are just the basics. And then just know that every editing window that you pop open will open up a new tab of sorts. So if I just go back into the font overview, and let's say if I double click on this E, you can see that this E comes up in another window. So you can imagine that if you're testing out a certain word combination over here, but if you want to test out a different combination on another tab, you can certainly do so. If you open up too many tabs, it might slow down the performance of Glyphs app. So I do recommend that you somewhat keep it tidy rather than opening up a bazillion tabs. But it is certainly very useful. And you will also notice that these tabs also save when you save the font file. So I'm just going to save this file, and then I will quit out of Glyphs. And just to show you, I will open up this font file again. And then you will see that the tabs and the content of them are also saved. So that's really useful. And then I just want to show you one more thing about how to select different letters in this font overview. So you can, of course, click on each individual ones and double click and type them in. But if you want to bring up certain characters, you can also use the Command key on your keyboard. So if you press the Command key and click on different letters, you'll see that you can highlight all these different letters. Alternatively, you can also use Shift to highlight a bunch of different characters. Let me click out of this so not a bunch of letters are highlighted. And I will click on A right here, and then I will press Shift on my keyboard and then click on the letter Q. And you can see that every single letter that was between the A and the Q were highlighted. So this is really good for highlighting multiple letters that you want to see. And you can see that if I just double click on any of these letters that are highlighted, there will be a new tab that shows me all the different letters that I highlighted in the overview window before. So that's it for now, and we will go into installing plugins for Glyphs app.